How's it going? My name's Kyle, and this is the first video that I'm posting to the internet. I've been toying with this idea for about a year now, and today I was sitting thinking about it, and I've had friends that have suggested that I record these videos. I do a lot of talking with my buddies and some people at work. I give presentations on personal motivation and leadership, and I honestly came down to I was just a little scared and nervous to post videos to the internet just based on the vulnerability. It is a little, there's a level of fear there, and then I realized that that's the one thing that I tell people daily is to not have a fear of failure. And I'm sure there's thousands of people that if they actually do see this are going to hate my ideas and disagree with me, and that's totally fine. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You're probably smarter than I am. I'm a simple guy with something that I read that seemed very simple, and I hadn't really seen it out on the internet, and I felt like I could possibly offer that up to some people that maybe they can sit there and realize there's a little bit more capacity and a little bit more than they can do on a daily basis in a focused area that they want. And if that helps them and inspires them to be a better version of themselves, then I encourage all of the negativity because that I reached my goal. I'm personally, I've had the distinct pleasure of serving in the United States military for the last 16 years, where I got to work alongside some of the best men and women that I've ever met. Really taught me a lot about myself and about leadership, and I really became a student of that. I read continuously. I've been averaging about 60 plus books a year on leadership, personal motivation, efficiency, biographies of polarizing and very famous leaders, and I just I'm personally energized by talking to people and motivating and people to go out and do more. And this seemed kind of like a natural transition is to hopefully obviously I live in New Jersey, so I can't see everybody on a daily basis, but with the internet, maybe there's somebody out there that this will reach and kind of help them, like I said, be a better version of themselves. So with that, I'm just going to talk today about a simple concept that I read about in a stats book that really changed my life and kind of how I look at life in general or whatever area. And you can kind of overlay this, in my opinion, to whatever avenue you want, whatever area of focus you want to put it in. And I think that it really translates well. Kind of gives you something to think about and where you really want to be when it's all said and done, and you can look back on your life and be proud of what you did. With that, I'm not a statistician, so I'm sure there's people out there that are going to argue that I am making the assumption that you're always using a normal distribution. So for any stats people out there, that is a giant assumption, and I'm not saying that this is right. This is just what I learned, I read about, and then it kind of clicked in my brain to kind of take it beyond stats and kind of look at that in life. And I think that it really works. But like I said, I'm making some statistical assumptions on being a normal distribution or whatever. So with that, what I have is not only did I buy a $30 webcam today, I bought a $30 whiteboard. So let me see if I can get this focused for you. All right, so what we have here for anybody that's familiar is it's the empirical rule. Let me see if I can get that best for you. There you go. That's probably the best I can do. So what the empirical rule is, it's also known as the 68, 95, 99.7 rule. And it says that during a normal distribution that the mean, so the average, 68% of your data points or people or whatever you're using are going to end up within one standard deviation above or below that. And I'll make this in simpler terms here in a second, but just to give you the construct. So 68% end up within one standard deviation of the mean or the average. 95% end up between two standard deviations, and 99.7% within three standard deviations, and then that gives you 0.3% that are outside or greater than three standard deviations from the mean. So what that really means to me, and like I said, in my simple way of thinking, my simple brain there is that the average. So let's take leadership. Let's take bosses for an example. So your boss, or let's say you work for 5 companies. So of your bosses, you can take them and their leadership and go, hey, let's distribute them on the scale. The overall, the average boss, I'd say if you take data points, is going to do, it says 68% is going to do something within one standard deviation of the norm, of the average. So 68% of bosses in this example are going to do basically what's been done. They're going to do kind of the same thing. They're going to keep the same processes going. They're going to do a little bit, some are going to do a little bit more. 34% are going to, that 68% are going to do a little bit more, and 34% are going to do a little bit less. But overall, 68% of your bosses are going to basically do what the bosses have always done. So with that, that leaves obviously another 32%. So that means that of that next 95% are going to do with roughly two deviations from the average. So that leaves 13.5%. They're going to go above and beyond that first group. So 13.5% of people are going to be great bosses. They're going to find ways to connect with their people. They're going to do things that make them memorable. To me, this is forgettable, unfortunately. This is like the average boss, the kind of person that you'd go, oh yeah, you know what, I did work for that guy one day. I forgot that he was my boss back then. That's this realm. Outside of this, you're not forgetting them. You have people over here, this is the worst boss you ever had. Well, not the worst boss you ever, but a really bad boss. They did something that makes them memorable to you that did less than the average. They were worse than the average. And then you have somebody over here that did more than that. That's the person that really took care of you, that cared about their people. It was a servant leader that did all those things that made you really enjoy working with them and for them. And that puts them over here. And 95%, statistically speaking now, are going to do that. So 95% of people are going to do something that's within two deviations, whatever that it works out to be, of the norm. So that leaves 5% left now. So 5% of people, it splits to 2.5% on either side, above two standard deviations, are going to be what I call memorable. Like, these are your polarizing, in this example, your polarizing leaders that you worked for. This is it's because 2.5% were way out here and 2.5% were way back here. Down here is the person that no one will ever forget. This is the person that ran the Ponzi scheme and ran the company into the ground and did stuff that was so horrible that, like, the thought of them, everybody's like, oh God, I can't, that's that person that did something to end up down there. And then you have the person that ends up over here. And that's that person that just literally you would move to work for them again. My dad, when he changed jobs at one point, he had 7 people pick up their families and move to the other side of the entire state because he got a job on this and they wanted to continue working for him. In my opinion, that's down here. That's the person that, like, in the military, where, for anyone that served, thank you. But those people that were like, if I could work for that person again, if I could work for her one more time, I would deploy again. Like, I would go to the worst place on earth to work for her one more time because she was a fantastic leader. She was the best. She did something that was absolutely memorable. Those people had to do something that the other 95% didn't do to end up down here. You have, like I said, you have people down here in this realm and beyond, where now you're talking 99.7%. So let's take it one step further, and then I'll kind of bring this back down to earth. But so that's saying 99.7% of people are within 3 standard deviations of the average, of the norm, of whatever that is. If you have a group of really smart kids, the mean's going to be a much higher number of, an intelligence scale or an IQ scale than possibly it is with people that are less intelligent. But in there, you're still going to have a normal distribution, and you're going to have the people that did more and the people that did less. And when it gets down to that end, so now you're at 99.7. So that does leave 0.3%. So 0.15% that did something, just, they're legends. You're literally, in my opinion, you're legends on the ends of this. Good and bad. There's, down here, you have Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, the people that you love. For me, a Pat Tillman, the people that did so, Murph, the guys that did so much that ended up down here, in my opinion, that Abe Lincoln, that really changed the world. And down there you have the worst of the worst. The down here is the reason I've never met an Adolf. I've never, like, met somebody's kids and been like, oh, this is little Billy and that's little Adolf. Because the guy named Adolf did something so horrible that he ended up on that end, like the 0.15% of the worst part of the spectrum. So with this, I look at this, and I learned this just about normal distribution when I was taking a stats class. And I looked at it and I was like, this is life to me. I look at this every day in my mind and I go, where do I want to be on leadership? Where do I want to be as a dad? Where do I want to be as a little league coach, as a painter, as whatever you want to be? Whatever makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up and makes you come alive, where do you want to end up on this scale? And then you have to look at these percentages and go, hey, I want to be the best painter ever. Okay, you want to be the best painter. So you want to be down here. You want to be a legend. You want to be somebody that people remember or do something. Maybe you don't even, maybe you're super humble and don't want to be remembered, but you just want to put out art that people are, that's breathtaking to them. Well, then, in my mind, the way I look at this and the way I look at life is you have to do what 95% of people aren't doing. You have to, or 99%. Where do you want to end up on this scale? You have to do more than that. If you think that you're just going to be able to do what everybody else does, you're going to end up in the middle. You're going to maybe do a little bit more, a little bit less, but 68% of those painters are all going to, people that paint are going to end up in the middle of painters. That's how the distribution works. So if you want to do something so amazing, you have to do what nobody else is doing. So the way I look at that is mine is leadership. I love leadership studies. I love personal motivation. And therefore, I get up earlier than anybody I know. I read more books than anybody I know. I shut my mouth and just listen to smart people. Everything I'm saying is just a replication of somebody else's information. I'm not a smart man. I just listen and try and shut my mouth as much as possible because I want to do something that really changes the world. I want to reach people and have people realize like, hey, you want to, like, what do you want to do? And sit and talk to people. And it's like, well, I want to own my own bakery. It's like, fantastic. So you want to own your own bakery. And like, yeah, I want to be a fantastic baker. I'm like, great. Well, then what do bakers do? What do small business owners do? And where are you going to end up? Because you have to be doing more. If you do what everybody else has done, you're going to kind of get what everybody else has got. There's that saying for a reason. And you're going to end up in the 68%, the kind of forgettable. Your bakery's not really going to be anything that anybody's really talking about. But those home runs, those, Carlos Bakery and those bakeries that people are, love and talk about, they're doing something that nobody else is doing. So look at it and go, be honest with yourself and be like, am I putting in the time? Am I doing what 95%? Or maybe you're just good with being better than the average. Are you doing more than 68%? Because that's still a tough bill to say, to answer to. And if you can say no, then you're in my opinion, you're not going to get there. So you have to be doing more. And that's learning, reading, go to conferences. I read a book about a guy that was a real estate agent and got really good at real estate because he learned zoning laws. And he just learned everything about zoning laws. And then when it came to buying real estate, he knew more about how he could flip houses and how he could, rework land because he read the zoning laws that nobody else had read. That's doing what nobody else is doing. That's pushing himself to the right side of this bell curve of life. He wanted to be the best real estate agent, and he's killing it now because he did what nobody else is doing. So when you're looking at it and you're like, I struggle when I have kids, and I struggle when people are like, oh, so-and-so, these kids are doing this, and I'm like, okay, 68% of people's kids are all doing the same thing. I'm trying to not do that. So every day I try and do, I don't know what book it was in. It's one in my office here, but there was, the guy in the book said, when people start looking at you weird is when you're onto something. And I agree with that because that's doing what's down here. That's you're going to have to be different. You're going to have to be weird. You're going to have to be uncomfortable being uncomfortable. Right now, I've never recorded a YouTube video. I'm sure if anyone watches that, I'm going to get some horrible comments about what Easter eggs I forgot to pull off my shelf or, my hair or something. And it's like, I don't care because to me, I'm trying to do things that are out here because in my heart, I know that there's somebody out there that wants to be down here on this end of the bell curve, and they've just never been given this information. And I found this in a stats book. It had nothing to do with life. It wasn't supposed to be this epiphany moment in my life, but it really was for me. And I overlay this on everything. As a dad, I go, all right, I don't want to be just an average dad. I want to be a fantastic dad. I want to be someone my kids, when they're older, they're like, man, my dad, he worked hard and he did so much with us. And so I struggle because it's very easy to come home from work and be like, I want to watch Netflix or I want to do whatever. That's in the middle. That's what everyone's doing. But I have to be like, no, I'm going to drink coffee at 9 because I got to get through and I got to get up early and do my things, because when I have time with my kids, I'm going to put it in. I'm going to do things that nobody else is doing because I want to be a dad that made a difference, that did so much more. So this construct to me, this bell curve of life, as I call it, I can overlay to anything. So, but I do warn you, it is lonely on the ends of this bell. Obviously, it's lonely down there, and it should be, because you're a terrible person probably if you're down there. If we're using the leadership construct, I mean, you're not a terrible person if you're using the baking one. You're just probably not a very good baker, or you haven't found your way of moving yourself to this side. But it's very lonely. You got to be very comfortable, because, like I said, if you're trying to do, like I am, I'm trying to do what 99.7% of people aren't doing when it comes to leadership studies and personal motivation and efficiency. That means that to 99.7% of people, I'm weird and I'm doing things that are different, and you get looked at differently, and people ask questions about why you're doing what you're doing, and they think you have ulterior motives, or they're making assumptions about your motives. And when you're taking that to go, just, you have to keep the blinders on. You have to know that you're going to be weird and be comfortable being weird. I'm weird, I'm fine with that. Like, that's, but to me, it's, when I look back on life, it's a life worth living down here. This is the end you want to be at. So figure out, ask yourself, read Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Read these books that kind of help you figure out what it is that makes you come alive. Howard Thurman's got a great quote that I love that says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and do that, because what the world needs is more people who've come alive. And I love that. It's like, if you want to, if you love being at hiking, then you want to be, you want to hike the most mountains or whatever. It's like, then you got to do more than the average hiker. You got, learn trails. You got to do all the stuff that that involves that. And that's life, man. Life's down at this end. To me, when I look at life, this half of the bell curve is not even an option for me. I'm doing everything I can every day to be down here, and it's lonely. This is a lonely end of the curve, because everybody else is in the middle, right? So you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose, potentially lose family members, aren't going to understand why you're doing what you're doing. But I just love it. Like, if this is, to me, like, I feel like I have an ethical obligation in life to do as much as I can to leave this world better. I have a personal mantra of move the ball forward. Every day I get up, I'm trying to improve something. If I put my time into it, I want it to get better. And I hope that this helps somebody out there. Just quickly, in summary, like I said, it's a statistical rule. It has nothing to do with personal motivation or leadership or life or achieving your goals, but it was something that I found in a stats, the Dummy's Guide to Statistics. It's back on the shelf back there. And it changed my life. It kind of made me look at it and go, hey, if I want to not be average, I want to be great at whatever I put my time and effort into. Like I said, whether that's parenting or, a certain occupation or a passion or a hobby, whatever it is, you have to be doing what, to get here, you're doing what 68% of people aren't doing. You're doing what 95% of what people are doing. You're doing what 99.7% of people aren't doing. And then you end up as a legend down here in whatever field or whatever arena you're looking at. So if you take this, you can overlay, in my mind, I feel like you can overlay this to any construct in life. And yeah, and someone at golf, I don't think I'll ever be down here. I'm happy just golfing. So I'm good with just this, because you do only have a certain amount of time. So you have to be very laser focused, because you're not going to be able to do what 7% of people aren't doing in everything. You're going to have to pick the thing that really makes you come alive. It's in your heart, and then just put in the work and do it. Learn, and yeah, be kind to people, and hopefully you end up somewhere down here. And I think that if you do, then that's a life worth living. So thank you again. My name's Kyle. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please pass it on. I literally have no ulterior motives. I'm sitting in my office, and I bought a whiteboard and a webcam and wanted to record a video that hopefully helps somebody out there. Thanks. Take care.